Chapter 3 Company Final Account. Company form came into existence after Industrial Revolution. Financial statements of a company are of utmost importance for all parties. It gives a true and fair information about financial performance and the position of the company. Therefore, they are to be prepared as per the given forms and format by the Companies Act. In this chapter, we'll study about the preparation of balance sheet and the statement of profit and loss of company as per the Companies Act 2013. Here I wrote the meaning. Financial statement are statement presenting accounting information in brief at the end of the accounting process for an accounting period. Financial statement provides information regarding financial result to its internal and external users. From the balance sheet and the general instruction, Part 1 of Schedule 3 to the Companies Act 2013 gives a form of balance sheet. Balance sheet of a company must be prepared as per format, and Schedule 3 gives only vertical format. Here is the vertical format of balance sheet. Balance sheet, now have to start with the specimen. Write balance sheet of the company's name, company as on the date. Here is the particular, there are total 4 columns. You can see I wrote the numbers and you have to continue with the same number and at the same stage. You can't change any of the entries at any other place. The part A is related to the liability, equity and liability, and another part is related to the asset. And these are the numbers and the position have to be kept at this same format. You can't change it, any of it. First one, shareholder fund, where we can keep the share capital and reserves and surplus. On the second point, non-current liabilities, where there are 3 parts: long-term borrowing, other long-term liability, long-term provision. Third one, current liability, short-term borrowing, trade payable, other current liability, and the short-term provision, and at the end the total will be shown over here, the total of liability. You can see where to keep the entry. After making a total of it, you can take it out to this next column. Next is asset, where the stage is divided into 2, that is non-current asset and current asset. In non-current asset, the fixed asset can be a tangible, can be an intangible. Have to be numberized like that. And non-current investment, long-term loan and advance, and other non-current asset will be recorded in the non-current asset column. And in the current asset, current investment, inventories, trade receivable, cash and cash equipment, short-term loan and advance, and other current asset will be recorded over here. Make a total and remove it out, the balance amount. And at the end, the total must get tally with the liability. This is the same, but the format, you can't change any number of the format in this balance sheet. Same for the profit and loss. Now, forms of profit and loss statement and the general instruction, Part 2 of the Schedule 3 to the Companies Act 2013 gives a format of profit and loss account of a company must be prepared as per the following format. Schedule 3 gives only vertical format. Here is the specimen start, where you have to write down the statement of profit and loss, then the name of the company, then profit and loss statement for the year ended, the whichever year given in the question. This will be prepared same as with the 4 columns. First, it is simple and easy to be remembered compared to the balance sheet. First, only have to write revenue from operation, which will be given. This information will be given in your question, where you have to take sales minus sales written. Other income like interest or dividend, profit on sale of asset have to be included on this part over here. Then at the third, total revenue, that is stage 1 and stage 2 will be added and take the amount at the next column. Then the fourth stage is the expenses, where here there is no need to give number, but I gave it number to make you remember. There are total 7, where the first will write purchases / cost of goods sold, second change in stock, Direct expenses, where we can include wages and the freights. Fourth, employee benefited expenses like salary, contribution to provident fund. Fifth, finance cost, where we include interest on debenture or bond or interest on loan. Sixth one, depreciation and amortizations. Seventh, other expenses like office and administrative expenses or bad debt will be included over here. Then we'll make the total of the expenses and the total expense will be written over here. Fifth stage is the profit before tax, where we'll take the third minus the fourth. The third, where we find out the total revenue, get minus with the fourth of total expense. The value will declare as a profit before tax. Then the provision for tax on the sixth stage, which will be given in your question, that what percentage of tax have to be calculated, will be calculated by the stage of fifth. And after minusing this, on this seventh stage, where after minusing we'll get the profit after tax, where we'll take fifth minus sixth. You will get the answer over here. Comparatively, it is simple and easy to be remembered. It is very important. So here you can see, write it down and make a practice as much as you can before we start with the exercise. You can stop the video over here and learn and by heart it, so we can continue with the next stage. Now, something really important. The classifications of head and the subheads of the equity and liability of balance sheet of company. Now here is the stage which we have saw in the specimen of the balance sheet. One by one the detailed subheads will be given over here. With the headings of liability, we saw the first stage of share capital and reserve and surplus was included. Here I gave the number which was given in the balance sheet. You can see this. On the all this number, what subheads will be included on these heads will be given over here. These also have to be write it down. Learn it as much as you can, so when we start with the exercise, you won't get any confusion. So first one, for the share capital, here they include equity share capital and preference share capital. The thing which you can remember, just mark it कि ये तो हमको याद हो जाएगा, जो नहीं याद हो रहा है उसको ही याद करना है. While going from so long with the balance sheet, I don't think so कि आपको ये याद नहीं रहेगा. Obviously you can remember this. Only the thing which is new or you are not able to remember, please mark only that much entry and you can practice with that. Reserves and surplus, where the surplus of statement of P&L. I kept all the reserves together, so it would be easy for you to remember it. General reserve, capital reserve, security premium reserve, reserve fund. Then workman accidental compensation fund, investment fluctuation reserve, and loss as per the statement of profit and loss will be included in this too with the first stage. Next stage is for the non-current liabilities, where we can see the three stage: long-term borrowing, other long-term liabilities, and long-term provision. Now what is included in the long-term borrowing is the debenture, bond, long-term loan, and the public deposit. Other long-term liability, where includes premium on redemption of debenture and the premium on redemption of preference share. Long-term provision, where it is included provident fund, gratitude fund, pension fund, workmen profit sharing fund, and workers savings account. Now here you can again pause the video and check which you are not understanding and get it practice for the subheads. Next is included for the current liabilities, that is 6, 7, 8 and 9. Short-term borrowing, trade payable, other current liability, and short-term provision. The subheads for the short-term borrowing, where short-term loans which is less than 12 months, bank overdraft, and cash credit. Trade payable, creditors, and bills payable. That is 7th point. And 8th, where the other current liabilities are included: outstanding expenses, outstanding interest on debenture, income received in advance, call in advance, and advance received from customer, and unclaimed dividend. And in the short-term provision for tax and proposed dividend. Moving to the asset side, where the fixed asset is divided into the two parts, that is tangible and intangible. Hope you all remember tangible, which can be touched and seen, and intangible, which cannot be touched or seen. So here the tangible asset include land and building, plant and machinery, furniture and fixture, tools and equipment, leasehold asset and vehicles. Whereas in the intangible, goodwill, patent, trademark, copyright, license, software, franchise. And in the non-current investment, it will include it. Just remember the series, because the thing which is given over here will be continued in the next short-term investment as well. In the current investment, it will be continue. Shares and debenture of other companies, units of mutual fund, government securities, provident fund investment, debenture redemption fund investment, fixed deposit. Whereas in the long-term loan and advance on the asset side will be include to the loan to employees, which is more than 12 months, custom duties, telephone deposit, electricity deposit. Next, on other non-current asset, debenture discount, advertisement campaign expenditure and research and development expenditure, which to be write off after next 12 months when it is non-current asset. Now moving to the current investment. The asset is having only two stages, with the non-current and the current investment, which will be work for the less than 12 months. I told you this will be continue, that is shares and debenture of other company, unit of mutual fund, government security and marketable security, which has been making current investment for the less than 12 month. Inventories like stock of raw material. Now in inventories I kept these stocks together, like first comes raw material. I'm just showing you that how you can remember. पहले raw material आया, बाद में semi finished goods बना, बाद में finished goods बना, बाद में trading किया, then consumable store तक गया, and goods to be transit with, and these two at the end like loose tools and the spare parts. Anyhow you have to remember this subhead. तो do anything, you can make it as a film और कुछ भी आप बना के उसको याद रखो कि ये कौन से स्टेज पे आएगा. Okay, moving to the 17, trade receivable, that is will be include debtors and bills receivable, and in cash and cash equipment, check and draft on hand, cash on hand and the bank balance. For the short-term loans and advance for the less than 12 month, where the loan advance मतलब दिया हमने, then advance to the suppliers, and other current asset to be write off during 12 months are debenture discount, advertisement campaign expenditure, research and development expenditure, prepaid expenditure, income due but not received. At the one time while going through to the video, obviously it won't be remembered, so you can pause it and make it remember, because at the next stage we are going to start with the solution. So before we go to the solution, please by heart all this thing so we can continue with this, with the exercise. And there I don't want any kind of confusion from your side, because if you get confused you won't be able to remember the subheads. So this is the solution. We'll start. Here we start the solution of the question number 3, that how will you show a following balance in the balance sheet of a company as per Schedule 3 of Companies Act 2013. Here are the questions are given where you have to give the answer, that in which balance sheet head it comes, then in which main head and in which subheads. So creditors main head of the balance sheet head comes to the equity and the liability, whereas the main head comes in the current liability and comes in the subhead of trade payable. So before you start the solution, you can write it down all the entries which is given in the question, and with the column of balance sheet head, main head and the subhead. And for the more practice, you can also solve illustration 1, 2, 3, which is related to the liability, and the 7 is related to the asset. In question number 3, we have all the mixtures of the liability as well as asset. Next is coming security premium. Again comes in the equity and liability. Main head comes in the shareholder fund. And the subheads comes in the reserve and surplus. Next, bond again comes in the liability, comes in the non-current liability, that is more than 12 months, and in the comes subheads of long-term borrowing. For the explanation, I can show you here. Moving to the next, goodwill comes in the balance sheet head of asset. In non-current asset, and comes in the fixed asset, subheads of fixed asset in intangible asset. Next is bank overdraft, comes in the liability side. The equity and liability comes in the current liability in the subheads of short-term borrowing. Next is bills receivable, which comes in asset, comes in the main head of current asset and subheads of trade receivable. Next is equity share capital, which comes in equity and liability in the main heads of shareholder fund and in the subheads of share capital. Moving to the copyrights, comes to the asset with the main head of non-current asset with the subheads of fixed asset, intangible. Next is debenture discount for the during next year. For the next year comes in the asset side with the current asset, main head of current asset and subhead of other current asset. Call in advance comes in equity and liability, comes in the current liability and included in this other current liability in the subheads. Cash is asset, comes as a current asset and in the subheads of cash and cash equipment. Next is provident fund, comes in the equity and liability, main heads of non-current liability and the subheads of long-term liability. Debenture again comes to the equity and liability, comes in the non-current liability and with the long-term borrowing, comes in the subheads of long-term borrowing. Next is trademark, comes in asset, which comes in the non-current asset with the fixed asset, intangible in the subheads. Loose tools again comes in the asset, included in current asset in inventories. Loan payable at the next year comes in the equity and liability. It is payable, so it comes as a liability, included in the current liability in the other current liabilities subheads. Next is bills payable, which will be included in equity and liability, included in current liability in the subheads of trade payable. General reserve comes in the equity and liability, which include in shareholder fund and comes in the subheads of reserve and surplus. Next is public deposit, which again comes into the equity and liability, comes in the non-current liability in the long-term borrowing. Debtors comes in asset for non-current asset in the subheads of trade receivable. Next, patents again comes in asset in the non-current asset with the fixed asset of intangible. Call in arrears comes in equity and liability, main heads of shareholder funds, and deducted, this is deducted from share capital. Sorry, I don't have space. Next is 23, where debenture redemption fund investment comes in asset in the main heads of non-current asset and the subhead of non-current investment. Store and spare parts, this comes in asset with the current asset and included in the inventories as a subheads. 25th again comes license, included in assets in the main head of non-current asset and in subhead of fixed asset intangible. Closing stock comes in asset in the main head of current asset and in subhead of inventories. Bank balance again comes in the asset in the current asset and comes in the cash and cash equipment subheads. Surplus as per statement of profit and loss comes in the equity and liability in the main head of shareholder fund and subheads of reserve and surplus. Deposit in electricity company comes in asset, main head of non-current asset and subhead of long-term loan and advance. Premium on redemption of preference share comes in equity and liability in the non-current liability, the main heads of non-current liability and the subhead of other long-term liability. Next, question number 4 on your page number 149. Following balance are taken from the book of SEMA Limited on 31st March 2017. Prepare statement including asset of balance sheet as on 31st March 2017 as per the Schedule 3 of Companies Act 2013. So here balance sheet is ready, only the asset side is given. Here I put on the numbers, so it will help you to remember the format and you won't make any mistake. So after writing this, just look at the question. In the question, I already wrote the numbers. Before I start the solution, I first go through the question and I put on the numbers so I won't make any mistake while putting into the solution. In the solution, don't forget you can't change any of the format of it. So just let's start with the current investment with the amount of 12,000. Here you can see the current investment and keep into the column with the 12,000. Next is short-term loan and advance, which is given 16,000. Come here and keep it into the short-term loan and advance. Next is other current asset with the amount 7,200. Other current asset with the amount, here puts 7,200. Next is fixed asset tangible, amount 5,60,000. In the tangible, come and write down 5,60,000. It seems really simple and easy. The only thing in this chapter is to remember the format. Next, cash and cash equipment comes with the 14,000. So here comes cash and cash equipment with the 14,000. Next, inventories of rupees 46,000. 46,000 in inventories. Trade receivable 15,800. 15,800. Other non-current asset is 18,000. 18,000. Next, non-current investment 26,000. Non-current investment 26. Fixed asset intangible 1,20,000. Here comes 1,20,000. Long-term loan and advance, which comes 22,000. So here we put on with all the entries of the question number 4, and now I will make a total of it. Here take out the total of non-current asset with 7,46,000, and with the current asset it is 1,11,000. If you make the total of both, you will get 8,57,000. It is next question number 5. Following balance are taken from the books of Yuva Limited on 31st March. Prepare the statement indicating equity and liability of balance sheet as on 31st March 2017 as per the Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013. Here is the question is given, and as we are going to solve related to the balance sheet liability side, so here I wrote all the entries with their numbers, so you won't get any mistake. So let's start with the first one, and even here I first check before I start solution. Even you people have what you have to do before you start the solution. You have to go through the question, look at the entry and give the numbers before you keep into the solution. So here first we can see it is equity share of rupees 5 each, so which will comes into the share capital, that is 6,50,000. shareholder fund share capital 6,50,000. Next is general reserve 70,000, which will comes in the reserve and surplus with 70,000. Next is provident fund of 3,60,000, which comes in the head of the long term provision amount 3,60,000. Next, creditors with the 86,000 comes in the trade payable. Next, public deposit of 3,26,000 comes in the long term borrowing 3,26,000. Next, outstanding rent with 13,000 comes in the other current liability 13,000. Next is provision for tax comes for 68,000 comes in the short term provision with the 68,000. Next, other long term liability 15,000 with the same head, other long term liability of 15,000. Next is temporary loan, which shows the credit balance comes for the 12,000 comes in the short term borrowing, that is 12,000. That's it. And now we'll make a total of it. 6,50,000 plus 70, take outside the amount 7,20,000. Next, make a total of these three, you will get 7,01,000. Total of this row amount, it would be 1,79,000. Now we'll make of this 3, we'll get 16 lakh. Question number 6, where the following balance are taken from the books of Moon Limited, prepare balance sheet as on 31st March 2017 as per the Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013. This is the question and the mixture of liability and asset together this time. So here you can see the solution. For the solution, remember you have to give the heading, put on the specimen and write down before you start the solution. Write down all the heads before you start the solution with the note number, so you won't get confused, and don't put any other number or any other format. Don't change that format. This comes for the 11 marks. So here we start with the first one, where we can see the interest accrued, which comes in the other current asset. Take the amount 30,000 and put on 30,000 over here. Next is plant and machinery 15 lakh, which is tangible asset. So here I am keeping 15 lakh. Even you can see in the question only, before I start the solution, I put on number first only. I won't get confused with the number. I already put the line, so I won't get confused, and I took any other number. So next one is the equity share capital, comes with the 15 lakh, comes on the liability in the share capital with the 15 lakh. Next is bank balance and the cash, comes in the cash and cash equipment with the 67,500. Next is general reserve 30,000, come in the reserve and surplus 30,000. Next is closing stock, comes in the asset in inventories 2,70,000. Next is creditor in the trade payable 6 lakh. Debtors in trade receivable 3,45,000. 3,45,000. Next is provision for tax, comes for 90,000, comes in the short term provision liability side. Next 12% bank loan 95,000, comes in the long term borrowing. Next is non-current investment with the 45,000. Here non-current investment 45,000 on the asset side. Next electricity deposit with a 1,87,500. 87,500. Next provident fund comes in the long term provision, that is 30,000. So here we finish with all the entries from the 6th question. Now we'll start making a total of it. With the first two, it comes 15,30,000. Over here it would be 2,25,000. 6 lakh minus 90, it is 6,90,000, and the total of these three will get 24,45,000. Next are the non-current asset. The total we find is 17,32,500, and over here we'll get 7,12,500, and at the end 24,45,000. So here we got tally with the liability and the asset side. Next question number 7, that is under which head will you show the following balance of the statement profit and loss as per the schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013. So here the question is given, we just have to show in which head it comes in the profit and loss account. So see how you have to write. Just write down all the numbers into the particular, and now we'll write down the heads and the schedule in head of the statement of profit. Sales comes in the first schedule, that is revenue from operation. Next is salary, which comes in the expense column, that is employee benefited expense. Depreciation in the head of depreciation and amortization. Bad debt recovered comes in other income. It is recovered, so it is income. Debenture interest again included, this included in the finance cost, that is in the column of the expense. Next is the audit fees, which will be included in the other expense. Income from scrap, now this is the included in the other income. Profit on sale of asset, again this will include in other income. Advertisement expense included in other expenses. contribution to provident fund, that will be included into employee benefited expense, interest on bank overdraft, which will be included in the finance cost in the expense side. Next is bank charges, which will be included in other expenses, bonus to the employee, that is employee benefited expense, debenture discount written off, which will be written in the depreciation and amortization expense. Here we finish with the 7th one. Moving to the 8th question, where it is written to following balance is taken from the book of Patel Limited. Now we have to prepare the statement showing profit and loss for the year ending 31st March 2017 as per Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013. So here we got the information. Again we have to do same with the statement of profit and loss as well. Prepare the specimen and write down all the steps. So it would be easy for us to just write down the numbers from the question. I am writing here with the pencil, so we won't change the schedule. And here is the ready specimen. So let's start with the first one, sale of scrap of 10,500, which can be written in the other income 10,500. Next is cost of material consumed. Now this is 1,87,500. It means it has been purchased. So keep into 1,87,500 in the purchase and the cost of goods sold. Next is salary, that is 78,000, which will be written in the employee benefited expense, that is 78,000. Next, interest paid 9,000, which will be covered into the financial cost 9,000. Sales 3,81,000, which will be put into the revenue from operation 3,81,000. Next, change in stock of finished goods is 12,000, which is given over here. Keep 12,000 over here. Next, office and administrative expense 15,600, which will be included in the other expense with the 15,600. Next is depreciation 84,000. So here we got 84,000. At the end it is given that provision for tax on profit is 30%. So that will calculate later on, but first we'll take it out. That is first 3,81,000 and 10,500. In the third it is given that total revenue is firm plus 2. Now add this 2 and take the amount outside by 3,91,000. Next, these all are the expenses. Just make the total outside. Here we got the expense. The fifth part is to profit before tax, means the third one get minus with the 3,86,100. Here we get 5,400. Now provision for tax is 30%. In the question, remove 30% on 5,400. It is 1,620. Get it minus, that is 3,780 for the profit after tax. Is as simple. Next, ninth one. Now following is the balance sheet of the KU Limited as on 31st March 2017. Here they have given all the mix with the profit and loss and the balance sheet asset and liability side and the adjustment. This kind of question is going to come in your section F, second question, which carries 11 marks. Now here we start with the question number 9. From the following is the balance sheet of KU Limited as on 31st March 2017. Now from question number 9, with two adjustment is given. One is the closing stock of 42,000 and the make the provision of tax 50% of the net profit. From the following information, prepare final account of the company for the year ended 31st March 2017 as per the Schedule 3 of Companies Act 2013. Note 2, the account are not required. Now here if you check them properly, you will find there are some entries of profit and loss as well. So here we are going to start to prepare profit and loss, statement of profit and loss as well as the balance sheet. Before you start the solution, you have to write down these entries and be ready with the specimen so you don't make any mistake in the format. Now moving to the first entry. Here it is written equity share capital of 2,40,000 will come in your balance sheet. 2,40,000 in the share capital. Next is office and the sales expense 24,000. Now this will be counted in the profit other expense with the 24,000. Next, purchase with the 4,26,000 will come again in the profit and loss account, statement of profit and loss. Next is 10% debenture with the 1,20,000 comes in the long term borrowing in balance sheet, liability side. Next, sales of 9,60,000 will come in the revenue from operation. Next is software with the 1,20,000 count as an intangible asset. So here comes 1,20,000 and try to write it down, and before you start the solution this will give you a good practice of remembering this format. Next is wages 24,000 comes in the employee benefited expense, amount is 24,000. Next, debenture interest of 12,000 count as a financial cost in the profit and loss. Next, salary 3 lakh, this will also count in the employee benefited expense. We can add and keep it out, but I don't have space, so I am keeping here directly. Next is bank overdraft 14,400 comes in the trade payable. Next, land and building tangible asset 2,28,000. Opening stock 36,000. Now for this always remember you have to write down over here change in stock of finished good, where we'll write opening stock 36,000 get minus with the closing stock. Here closing stock is given 42,000. If you get them minus, you will get the minus answer. When you get the minus answer, don't put minus but keep the bracket to make it understand it is minus answer. Next, discount receipt 15,600 count in the other income. Last, debtors with a 1,80,000. Here comes in the trade receivable 1,80,000, and adjustment 42,000 will count it in the inventories 42,000. Here also don't forget we have to pay it with the 2 entries, so here I kept and 1 I kept over here. Now at the end we'll make the total of it. Here the statement of profit and loss, make a total of revenue and other income, will get total income. Then make a total of expenses, don't forget to get minus 6,000, you will get 7,80,000. Then at the 5th line we have to get them minus and remove the answer, that is 1,95,600. You can see the 3rd minus 4th, you will get the answer of 5th. After getting it, remove the provision for tax, that is 50%, 97,800. After removing it, get them minus, the answer will be 97,800. Now this provision of tax will go to the short term provision over here in the balance sheet liability side 97,800, and profit after tax will be transferred to the balance sheet over here as a net profit. Then make a total of shareholder fund, then non-current liabilities, then current liabilities, get them total 5,70,000. Same for the asset side, make the total of non-current asset, then the current asset, and at the end make them total, you will get it 10. Last question number 10. From the following trial balance of the Parth Limited as on 31st March 2017. Here also the mixture of statement of profit and loss entries as well as the balance sheet. And from the above information, prepare final account for the year ended on 31st March 2017 as per the schedule of the Companies Act 2013. Note to the account are not required. Now, similar question I am just showing you before only, that illustration 14 you will get on your page number 145. Try to make as much as practice of this chapter because it's carry 11 marks and it's really simple just to remember this. First is the sales with 11,25,000 comes in the profit and loss. 11,25,000 at the heading of the revenue from operation. Next is employee benefited expense is 1,95,000, which will comes in over here with a 1,95,000. Next is inventories 1,65,000 comes on the asset side. 1,65,000. If you want, you can before solution you can write it down where it will come and at which numbers in the balance sheet. Next is the financial cost is 26,250 comes over here 26,250 in the statement of profit and loss. Next is the security premiums for 60,000 comes in the reserves and surplus. 60,000. Next, fixed asset tangible 12 lakh. So here comes on the asset side. Next, trade payable of 90,000, liability side. Next, equity share capital with a 7,50,000, liability side. Next is trade receivable 60,000. Other income 30,000 over here. Okay, by mistake I wrote over here. Write it down over here. I'll cut it down. Next, long-term borrowing with a 5,25,000. Next, cash and bank will come in the asset side. 90,000. Next is depreciation with 33,750. Cost of goods sold 6 lakh comes in the purchased. And last, non-current investment with 2,10,000. And no any adjustment is given, even the provision is not given. So here we can make a total. Here I made the total of revenue from operation and other income, got total income. Then the total of expense is 8,55,000. Then profit before tax, that is 11,55,000 minus 8,55,000, I got 3 lakh. Provision for tax is not given, so profit after tax is 3 lakh. But here the net profit will pass to the reserve and surplus. The total of equity and liability shareholder fund is 11,10,000. Then non-current liability comes with a 5,25,000. Current liability comes with the 90,000, and the total of liability is 17,25,000. Whereas in asset, I found in the non-current asset 14,10,000 and the current asset with the 3,15,000, and total of asset is 17,25,000, which get tallied with the liability. Here is the